That's the first thought that comes to mind whenever I think back to that morning. The one that changed everything. I remember sitting in my room, still in my favorite blue pajamas, watching the sun crawl across my desk. I was supposed to be getting ready for the biggest day of my life. The interview I had worked toward for 3 long years. But instead, I was staring at my phone, confused, numb, and strangely hollow. Because just 30 minutes earlier, I had received a message from the company. "Thank you for attending your interview today, Ms. Khan. We'll be in touch with next steps." Attending? I hadn't even left the house yet. My first instinct was that there must be some mistake, maybe an automated message sent too early. But when I walked into the kitchen and saw my mother humming, stirring sugar into her tea, that hollow feeling inside me started to spread like ink in water. "Mom," I said quietly, "did someone call for me this morning?" She didn't look up. Oh, just a wrong number, I think." But her tone was too quick. Her hand trembled slightly as she placed the spoon on the saucer. That's when I noticed it, my sister, Aaliyah's purse, sitting on the counter. She was gone, her phone charger missing, and her favorite perfume lingering faintly in the air. It smelled like betrayal. A week earlier, life had felt normal. Or at least our version of normal. I'm the eldest daughter, the serious one, as my mother often said. I had been working 2 part-time jobs after college, saving every rupee I could to afford a professional portfolio for my dream career in marketing. The company, Darson Media Group, was one of the biggest in the city. I had spent months crafting my application. Late nights, practice interviews, even standing in front of the mirror, rehearsing my smile. My father had passed away when I was 17, leaving just me, Mom, and Aaliyah. After that, the 3 of us became our own kind of triangle, uneven but still holding shape. I took on the role of the caretaker. Mom said I was responsible like your father, while Aaliyah was the spark, spontaneous, free, always ready with a laugh. Everyone loved her. She had big, dark eyes and a laugh that made people turn their heads. If I was the steady one, she was the storm, unpredictable, but somehow charming in the chaos. Mom adored her. Maybe too much. Sometimes I'd watch the way she brushed Aaliyah's hair, or fussed over her before family gatherings. It wasn't jealousy, not exactly. It was the quiet ache of always being second in your own home. Still, I tried not to let it bother me. I believed love wasn't a competition. At least, not until that phone call proved otherwise. The night before my interview, I could hardly sleep. I laid out my outfit, a neat navy suit, polished shoes, and a simple folder with my resume and certificates. Mom came into my room while I was ironing my shirt. "You're really nervous, aren't you?" she asked, leaning against the doorframe. "A little," I admitted. "But I've prepared for this. It's everything I've been working for." She smiled, but there was something hesitant behind her eyes. "Just remember, sometimes charm matters more than effort. People like confidence, not stiffness." I didn't like the way she said it. Still, I nodded, forcing a smile. "I'll try to be both." Aaliyah appeared in the doorway then, in her oversized t-shirt, hair tied up in a messy bun. "Big day tomorrow, huh?" she said, teasing. "Should I help you pick your lipstick? You always go too plain." "Thanks, but I think I'll manage." She rolled her eyes. "Suit yourself, Miss Corporate Queen." Mom laughed. I didn't. If I'd known what they were planning, I might have stayed awake all night, guarding my own future like a secret. That morning, everything seemed normal, until it wasn't. I woke up to an empty house. Mom's bedroom door was half open. The bed was made, which was strange for her. I assumed she'd gone out for groceries. I brewed coffee, double-checked my resume, and waited for my 11 a.m. interview slot. At 10:15, I got that message from the company. And that's when the pieces began to fall into place, one horrifying detail at a time. Mom's odd behavior. Aaliyah's missing purse. Her perfume. My heartbeat grew loud in my ears as I dialed my mother's number. She didn't answer. Then I tried Aaliyah's phone, also off. By noon, I was pacing the kitchen, running every possibility through my mind. Maybe Aaliyah had gone somewhere else. Maybe there was a mix-up. Maybe no. At 12:37, the front door opened. Mom stepped inside, smiling like nothing had happened. "You're still in your pajamas?" she said lightly. Didn't you have your interview today? My throat went dry. They sent me a message saying I'd already attended. She paused, just for a heartbeat, before forcing a chuckle. Oh, that must be some technical error. And then, before I could say another word, Aaliyah walked in behind her. Her hair was perfectly styled, her lips painted a soft coral. She looked professional, confident, and she was holding a Darson Media gift bag. My knees nearly gave out. I whispered, "What did you do?" Aaliyah glanced at Mom, unsure. Mom sighed, setting her bag down. "It's not what you think, dear." "Then what is it?" I demanded, voice shaking. Mom straightened her shoulders. "You've been under so much stress. You freeze under pressure. I just thought, maybe Aaliyah could go in your place, make a good impression, help you get your foot in the door." My foot in the door? I laughed bitterly. You sent her pretending to be me. Aaliyah bit her lip. Mom said it was just to get them interested. She said once they liked you, you could take over later. I couldn't even look at them. The room started spinning. It wasn't just about a job anymore. It was about everything. Every time Mom had compared us, every time she'd said Aaliyah was made for the world, while I was better behind the scenes. All those tiny cuts finally bled out at once. I said quietly, "You stole my name." And for the first time, neither of them had anything to say. I wish I could say I yelled, that I threw them out of the house, or demanded justice right then. But I didn't. I just stood there, still, quiet, cold. Because when betrayal comes from the people who raised you, it doesn't sound like shouting in your head. It sounds like silence. My mother kept talking, her voice calm, almost rehearsed. "Sweetheart, listen. You're so talented, but you get nervous. I didn't want you to lose the opportunity because of stress. Aaliyah just helped open the door. That's all." I stared at her. "You called the company, pretending to be me?" She hesitated, then nodded. They wouldn't have given her the interview otherwise. "I told them a little white lie, that you were feeling unwell, and would send your sister as a representative." A representative. Like I was a business deal she could delegate. Aaliyah took a step toward me. "It wasn't supposed to go this far, I swear. They just liked me, I mean you, and offered a follow-up meeting next week." Her voice broke. I didn't know how to stop it. I felt something in me crack, that last fragile thread holding our family together. "You didn't know how to stop it," I repeated slowly, "but you knew how to show up, use my name, my resume, my dream, and smile for the cameras?" Aaliyah's face crumpled. Mom placed a protective arm around her, like she was the victim. And that's when I realized, I had been the second choice my entire life. For days, I barely spoke to either of them. The house was quiet, suffocatingly so. I avoided the kitchen when they were there. I worked longer hours at my part-time job, just to stay away. But silence didn't stop the memories from replaying. That smirk of reassurance in Mom's eyes, Aaliyah's guilty half-smile, the message from the company that still sat unread in my inbox. I thought about deleting it, pretending it never happened. But part of me needed to know, how far had they gone? On the third night, when Mom and Aaliyah were out, I opened my laptop and logged into my email. My inbox had a new message from Darson Media Group. The subject line read, "Follow-up interview. Outstanding impression." I clicked it, hands trembling. They had thanked me for my exceptional creativity and communication, saying I had stood out among all other candidates. My stomach turned. Those words weren't meant for me. They were meant for the woman pretending to be me. I scrolled to the bottom and saw the sender's name, Mr. Rayhan Malik, Senior Director. He had even attached a note. "Looking forward to discussing project ideas with you next week." I could barely breathe. Every word was proof, not just of what they had done, but of how little faith my own mother had in me. I didn't confront them right away. Instead, I decided to see just how deep the lie went. The next morning, I asked casually over breakfast, "Did you hear back from the company?" Mom didn't even blink. "Not yet, but I'm sure they'll call soon." She poured tea for Aaliyah, not for me. Aaliyah shifted uncomfortably. "They emailed, actually. They want to meet again next week." Mom smiled proudly. "See? I told you she made an impression. They see what we see, confidence, beauty, charisma. Her words stung. Not because of the praise, but because of the we. It was like they were a team, and I was the outsider. I looked straight at her. What happens when they realize Aaliyah isn't me? Mom's smile didn't fade. They won't. She knows what to say. You'll thank us later, when they offer the job. That's when I finally said it out loud. I don't want a job earned through lies. She laughed softly, like I was being childish. Oh, don't be dramatic. Everyone stretches the truth a little to get ahead. You should be grateful your sister's helping you. Helping me. Those two words rang in my ears long after breakfast ended. Over the next few days, I watched them rehearse together. My mother and sister, laughing in the living room, going over marketing buzzwords from my old notes. Every time I walked past, their voices hushed. Once, I caught Aaliyah reading from my project binder, the one I'd spent months building. I stood silently at the doorway as she flipped through it, highlighting lines with my old marker. She saw me and froze. I was just studying. I finished for her, using my work to impress my dream company. Her eyes welled up. You don't understand, Amara. Mom just wants what's best for both of us. No, I said, my voice calm but shaking. Mom wants to prove that her favorite daughter deserves the spotlight. She didn't deny it. The night before her second interview, or my second interview, I stayed awake again. This time, not from nerves but from anger. I wrote a letter to the hiring director, explaining everything. I even drafted an email attaching proof, my resume, the timestamps of the calls, even a short video clip I had recorded secretly of Aaliyah practicing my answers. But when it came time to press send, I hesitated. Would exposing them destroy my sister's future? Or just reveal how little my mother thought of me? I stared at the screen until sunrise. My finger hovered over the send button, trembling. Then I stopped. Something inside me whispered, don't react, reclaim. If I was going to take back my identity, I wouldn't do it through vengeance. I'd do it by showing the world who I really was. So I deleted the email draft. And instead I made a plan. The next morning, I woke up before dawn. The house was quiet, both of them still asleep. I slipped out quietly, dressed in the same navy suit I had ironed days ago. At 8:45 a.m., I walked into the lobby of Darson Media Group. The receptionist looked up. Good morning, Ms. Khan. Are you here for the project follow-up with Mr. Malik? I smiled, calm, confident, and for the first time in weeks in control. Yes, I said. Yes, I am. I still remember how my heart thudded in my chest as I sat in that glass-walled lobby, pretending everything was normal. The air smelled faintly of citrus and coffee. The receptionist typed quietly behind her desk, unaware that the woman sitting in front of her wasn't supposed to exist, at least, not in the version my mother had created. When the elevator doors opened, a tall man in a charcoal suit stepped out. He looked exactly like the profile photo I'd seen in the company press releases. Mr. Rayhan Malik, Senior Director of Marketing. Ms. Khan, he greeted warmly, extending his hand. Good to see you again. For a moment, I froze. Then, with a practiced breath, I smiled and shook his hand. Good to see you too, sir. My voice didn't shake. That surprised me. He led me into a conference room, bright, modern, with city views stretching across the skyline. As he spoke, I listened carefully, noting every word, every assumption he made about our last meeting. So about your pitch, he said, opening his laptop. I've been thinking about your campaign idea. Stories that sell. Brilliant concept. Tell me more about how you'd structure it across digital platforms. My stomach tightened. That wasn't my pitch. That was hers, or rather, the one Mom must have helped Aaliyah rehearse using my old drafts. But instead of panicking, I leaned in. I'd love to, I said smoothly. But before we go further, I think there's something important you should know about our first meeting. He paused, curious. Oh, I met his eyes directly. You didn't meet me that day. The silence that followed could have cut glass. I told him everything, calmly, honestly. How my mother had called pretending to be me. How my sister had shown up in my place. How I found out only after the company sent the automated follow-up message. He blinked, stunned. You're serious? Yes. I didn't want to make excuses or point fingers. But I thought you deserved to know the truth. and to see me for who I actually am. For a long moment, he just studied me, perhaps weighing whether to believe me. Then, to my surprise, he nodded slowly. "That's unusual to say the least," he said. "But you're here now. Why don't you show me what your vision looks like?" And right there, I opened my folder, my real work. My late nights, my sketches, my campaign notes. I spoke from the heart, not rehearsed, not perfect, but real. He listened intently, occasionally jotting notes, his expression thoughtful. By the end of the presentation, he leaned back and smiled faintly. "I see now. You're very different from the woman I met last week. More focused, more grounded. That other candidate was, well, confident, but not as prepared." I exhaled shakily. "Because she wasn't me." He nodded again. "I appreciate your honesty, Ms. Khan. I'll take this to the board. Regardless of what happened, I think we owe you a fair evaluation." Fair. It was the first time in weeks anyone had said that word to me. When I stepped out of the building, sunlight hit my face, and I realized my hands were trembling. But it wasn't fear anymore. It was release, the kind that comes after standing your ground for the first time. By the time I reached home, Mom and Aliyah were in the living room, laughing over tea. Aliyah jumped slightly when she saw me. "Oh, you're home early." I placed my bag on the table, looking directly at them both. "You mean from my interview?" The color drained from her face. Mom set her cup down slowly. "What are you talking about?" "I went to Darson Media Group this morning," I said evenly. "And I told them everything." The silence that followed was so thick, I could hear the ticking of the wall clock. Aliyah's lips trembled. You told them?" "Yes," I said softly. "I told them the truth. My truth." Mom's voice turned sharp, defensive. "Amara, do you realize what you've done? You've embarrassed your sister. And me. That company will think we're liars." I looked at her, really looked at her. "Because we were liars, Mom. Or at least you were willing to turn me into one." She stood up, her voice rising. "I was trying to protect you. You always doubt yourself, always second guess. I thought maybe if Aliyah went, it would get your foot in the door." "Protect me?" I said quietly. "Or protect your image of what success should look like?" Her eyes flickered, something fragile breaking behind them. "You don't understand, Amara. People notice beauty first. Confidence. Aliyah has that charm. I just wanted someone to see potential in our family." I laughed bitterly. "So you traded my dream for her charm?" Tears welled in my sister's eyes. "I didn't mean to hurt you. I thought maybe once I got in, I could fix it. Maybe you'd get the job anyway." "You can't fix something built on a lie," I said. "And you can't speak for me anymore." That night, the house felt different, like something invisible had cracked open. Aliyah avoided me. Mom locked herself in her room for hours. I sat in the kitchen, staring at the fading evening light through the window, wondering if honesty had been worth it. Then my phone buzzed. New email. Darson Media Group, decision update. My heart raced. It read, "Dear Ms. Khan, thank you for clarifying the misunderstanding. After reviewing your portfolio and presentation, we are pleased to invite you to join our creative development program. We believe integrity is just as valuable as talent. Congratulations." I didn't realize I was crying until I tasted salt on my lips. Not just from relief, but from finally being seen. When I told my mother, she didn't smile. She just stared at me for a long moment, then said quietly, "You should thank your sister. Without her, they wouldn't have known your name." I looked at her, the woman who'd raised me, who'd taught me right from wrong, and I realized something painful. She might never understand. "Maybe not," I said softly. "But they know me now, because I showed up as myself." I turned away before she could answer. Behind me, I heard her whisper, "You've changed." And maybe I had. In the days that followed, everything inside our house shifted. Not loudly, but like a quiet earthquake that rearranges the ground you've always stood on. Mom stopped talking to me. Not in anger at first, more like she didn't know how to. Every conversation we had turned into something awkward and brittle, like a mirror ready to crack under one more word. Aliyah tried to apologize over and over. But every time she said, "I'm sorry," It felt like a bandage over a wound that hadn't even been cleaned yet. The day I got my official offer letter, I printed it out and laid it gently on the table beside Mom's morning tea. She barely glanced at it. "That's nice," she murmured, stirring her cup. "I hope you don't forget where you came from." That line hurt more than anything else she'd said. Because that's the thing about betrayal within a family. The world doesn't see it. It's quiet, private. It hides behind polite smiles at breakfast and "have you eaten?" at dinner. But when the wound is deep enough, even silence feels loud. The first few weeks at Darson Media Group were hard. I was the new girl. The one who had walked in through scandal and whispers. I could sense it. A few colleagues gave me curious looks, and one even said jokingly, "You're the real Ms. Khan, right?" I just smiled and said, "Yes. The only one." Mr. Malik, true to his word, treated me fairly. During our first team meeting, he said something that stuck with me. "Confidence without truth is just performance," he said, glancing at me briefly. "But confidence that comes from authenticity, that's what builds trust." It wasn't just praise. It was a lesson. Slowly, I started to find my rhythm again. My ideas were heard. My work was valued. I even got to lead a small campaign, my own project, my own name on the report. For once, I wasn't hiding behind anyone's shadow. And for the first time in years, when I looked at my reflection, I didn't see the responsible one, or the second-best daughter. I saw me. One evening, about 2 months later, I got home later than usual. The lights in the house were dim, and I found Aaliyah sitting in the kitchen with a cup of tea. Her hair was unstyled, her eyes swollen. She looked smaller somehow, like the brightness she used to wear so easily had dimmed. "Mom's gone to Aunt Salma's," she said quietly. "She needed space." I nodded, waiting. "I wanted to tell you something," she whispered, staring into her tea. That day at the company, when I walked into the interview, I felt like a fraud. They asked questions I couldn't answer. I kept thinking, Amara would know this. Amara would handle this better. Her voice cracked. When Mr. Malik complimented me, I couldn't even feel happy, because deep down I knew it wasn't mine. For a moment, I didn't know what to say. She looked up, tears trembling in her eyes. "You were always the strong one, Amara. Mom she sees the world through how it looks, not how it feels." And I went along with it because I was scared of losing her approval. I sighed, my anger softening just a little. "Aaliyah, you didn't just take an interview. You took away my chance to be believed." "I know," she said, nodding. "And I'm sorry. I can't undo it. But I promise, I'll never let her do that to you again. Or to me." For a long while, we sat there in silence. Two sisters bound by the same wound, finally seeing it for what it was. Then softly she said, "You know what's funny? Mom still tells everyone you got that job because of her idea." I almost laughed. "Of course she does. But I told her," Aaliyah continued, looking at me now. "I told her it was because you showed up as yourself. And that's something I'll never forget." Something in me, that tight knot I'd been holding for months, finally loosened. A few weeks later, something unexpected happened. Darson Media decided to hold a small networking event for new hires and their families. It was meant to celebrate collaboration and success. When Mr. Malik invited me to bring someone, I almost declined. But then I thought about Aaliyah. So, I asked her to come. When we walked into that glass hall, her in a simple white dress, me in a soft gray suit, I could tell she was nervous. "Are you sure I should be here?" she whispered. I smiled. "Yes. Because this time, you're walking beside me, not in my place." Mr. Malik came over, shook her hand politely, and then turned to me. "You've done excellent work this quarter, Ms. Khan. I'm proud of the way you handled everything." "Thank you, sir," I said. "It taught me more than any degree could." He nodded, then excused himself to greet others. Aaliyah looked around the room. The laughter, the music, the quiet hum of ambition. She leaned closer. "I get it now," she said softly. "It's not about being the prettiest person in the room. It's about being the most honest one." I smiled faintly. Took me a long time to learn that too. Later that night, when I dropped her home, Mom was waiting in the doorway. For a second, none of us moved. She looked tired, like pride had finally given way to guilt. "You didn't tell me you had that event," she said. "It was work," I replied quietly. "And it went well." She nodded, hesitated, then said, "I heard from your aunt. She said your company put out a press release. They mentioned your campaign idea." "They did," I said. She swallowed. I saw your name." Her voice faltered on that word, your. Then softer still she whispered, "You made me proud, Amara." It wasn't everything I wanted to hear, but it was something. "Thank you," I said, stepping past her into the house. "I just wish you'd believed I could do it on my own." She didn't answer. But later that night, I found a note on my desk, written in her careful handwriting. "I'm sorry for trying to make the world see you the way I wanted. You were already enough. I just couldn't see it then." There were no grand gestures, no tears. Just quiet understanding, the kind that comes too late, but still matters. Months later, as life settled, I sometimes caught myself remembering that morning. The message, the lies, the heartbreak. But the difference now was, it didn't break me anymore. It shaped me. Because losing something, especially trust, doesn't always mean you're weaker. Sometimes it means you've finally learned what your strength is worth. I started saving to move into my own apartment. A small space with big windows and silence that belonged only to me. On the day I signed the lease, Aaliyah helped me move boxes. When she left, she hugged me tightly. "You're really doing it," she said. "All on your own." I smiled. That's the only way it ever works. 6 months later, I was sitting in my new office when my phone buzzed with an unknown number. "Hello." I answered. "Amara Khan?" A woman's voice said. "This is Nita from the Women in Leadership panel. We'd like to feature your story about authenticity in the workplace." I froze, then smiled slowly. I'd be honored. That evening, I walked home through the fading sunlight, the city glowing around me. My reflection followed me in the glass of shop windows, steady, calm, real. No imposter. No second best. Just me. I've learned that betrayal doesn't always come from enemies. Sometimes, it comes from the people who think they're protecting you, who love you in a way that hurts. And sometimes, forgiveness isn't about letting them back in. It's about setting yourself free. My mother and I still speak, not every day but enough. Aaliyah visits often, and we laugh again. Not like before, but with something deeper now, honesty. When I walk into work every morning, I remind myself, confidence isn't about being the loudest or the prettiest. It's about knowing who you are when no one else believes in you. And I'll never forget the day I walked into that building, not as someone's substitute, not as anyone's prettier version, but as me. Sometimes, the people who love us the most are the ones who underestimate us the deepest. But the truth is, the world doesn't need another version of someone else. It needs you, just as you are. When I think back to that morning, the message that said I'd attended my own interview, I don't feel anger anymore. I feel gratitude. Because that lie pushed me to finally show up as my real self. And that's how I reclaim not just my job, but my voice. So, tell me, if someone you loved betrayed your trust to help you, would you forgive them? Or would you walk away for good? Let me know in the comments below. And if my story reminded you of your own strength, don't forget to subscribe. Sometimes, the hardest stories are the ones that teach us who we really are.